If you've ever done outbound telesales, you know there's nothing scarier than the first 15 seconds of a call, especially if your system hasn't told you who's on the other end of the line. I found Dale Dupree from the Sales Rebellion to tell us what to do in that scenario and share his top 3 tips so you are better at outbound calling. So Dale, the Sales Rebellion, you know a few things when it comes to outbound telesales.
So we're a sales training and development firm helping companies and also individual contributors. We're trying to fill that gap where there are a lot of companies that are training organizations and their teams, but we're actually taking on individuals as well too and putting them through boot camps that help them rebellionize, I should say, their sales walk and life. And make them better at what they do, and from a servant leadership mindset, and not so much from a how do I sell 10x what I'm selling now, but more of a realistic approach and one that builds a legacy for salespeople.
So you've dealt with loads and loads of salespeople at all different stages in their sales career. So what are some of the things or common mistakes that you see a lot of, especially telesales, outbound telesales people make?
I think one of the common issues I see is that so many people think that they need to regurgitate everything they possibly can within the course of like 15 to 20 seconds to try and get someone to say yes to a 15-minute calendar invite, which is a terrible ask in the first place. But they've kind of compartmentalized this like, hey, how can I quickly get somebody on the phone and then either book them for an appointment or get off the phone and move on to the next one, because they're stuck in this volume-centric mindset that they think is giving them results. They call 1,000 people and only 10 to 20 say they want an appointment. That's not much of a result in my mind.
Yeah, but they will just see it as, keep dialing every no and closer to a yes, so they don't mind burning through that data, do they?
No, they don't, because the reality is there's millions and billions of people in the world. And so in their mind, they just think, it's all good. We'll just keep dialing and dialing until we hit the preferred number that we want, based on this metric of speed, and because they're trying to get to some end result that really doesn't exist at the end that they're going to come to, because it just burns through people. And even the people that say they want to do something with them, they're not going to get the desired results that they want, from the pitch either. And somebody else is going to come along that's going to treat them better and less of a number and more like a human and steal the business away anyway.
So I was working in, I've worked in a few different outbound telesales roles. One of them was on a dialer. And we didn't even have the information of the person we were actually going to be speaking to for the first sort of 10 or 15 seconds of a call. Anyway, the system is slightly slower than the actual dialer. So we had to wing it. And it was some of the longest, hardest sort of sales time I've ever had on the phones. So what other common mistakes do you see that people make?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that the people that have to deal with that they just approach it so incorrectly that when they do pick up the phone, they say, hey, Mike, or something where they're trying to catch the attention of the person around, hey, I have a talk track that I need to place, when really they should be more proactive. And they should tell people, like, hey, you probably figured out by now that this is a telesales call, and I just wanted to get a couple things out of the way. A, I'm not with Marriott, and B, I'm not calling about your car's extended warranty. Try to get a smile out of somebody, try to get a laugh out of somebody. So it's not, I wouldn't ever tell somebody that using auto dialers or having this mindset of I have to dial 1,000 people a day to be successful is wrong, because I still believe that some people are going to find comfort in that, and that's okay. But what they need to do is they need to be thinking about the people on the other side of that dial, because it's that's where the focus needs to lie, and not selfishly with ourselves and the commission check that we're trying to make in the process.
It's interesting you there said being upfront and honest, telling people that it's a sales call. I know a lot of people and even trainers in the sales industry that would say not to do that, trying to avoid that at all costs. But I would say honesty is the best policy a lot of the time. Well, it is all the time, really, when it comes to that. And I think that works quite well if you tell people, yes, this is a sales call, if they're the person you need to be speaking to.
Agreed. And I think the other side of it too is what it does is it allows you to then set up the call. So yes, this is a sales call, but I'd like to discuss A, B, and C if you're okay with that, and making it something that differentiates and interrupts the typical patterns that they're used to hearing. The typical patterns are the pitch, so we fix this, or we're well known for that, or, we've ranked number 1 in the world for X, Y, and Z. Nobody cares about any of that, right? But if we were to be more proactive and say, yeah, sorry about the auto dialer. Unfortunately, I can't call you from my cell phone because my company needs to track my numbers. But I was hoping that you could give me a few minutes to share the reason why I called today and interrupt the pattern entirely. Because if you can interrupt the pattern, the person on the other line will hear a differentiation and will think to themselves, this is an experience that I haven't had before, and I'm going to let this play out. Unless they're extremely busy, because not everybody's going to take the dial anyway. Even when you're calling with purpose, not everybody's going to take the dial.
So what would be some of your top tips for anyone that is on the phones now doing outbound calls? What would be, say, your actual essential top 3 tips for them?
Yeah, the number one tip would be to create experiences. So this might sound crazy, Mike, but we have people that are sending what we call a first touch piece, which we believe is pretty revolutionary in the marketplace, that nobody's really doing anything like this. And so there are different campaigns. We have dozens and dozens of them at the Sales Rebellion. One that's really popular is what we call the letter campaign, where somebody sends out one of a 5 sequenced letter approach that comes in hard copy in the mail. And then as an SDR or a BDR, you're then picking up the phone and dialing behind that. And so you're creating an experience for the people that you're calling on because of it. So instead of picking up the phone and saying, hey, I want to pitch you for the next 27 seconds, you're saying, hey, did you get my letter? Yeah. Literally is all you're saying. And the letter creates an experience for a person that they've never had before and interrupt again. So that would be my number one tip. My second tip would be to use language that accommodates people inside of the call and that causes a stir of curiosity. We are curious creatures by nature as humans. Yet as salespeople, we constantly drive this methodology around factual or ROI driven advice at the call. And to me that it's kind of the dumbest thing that we could be doing as human beings, because as human beings, we're much more interested in some fantasy world, that we can find through a TV show or a movie than we are going to work at 8:00 in the morning. And so why in God's name would I want to take a phone call from somebody trying to sell me some product that I don't freaking care about in the first place, when instead I can be taken on some kind of adventure with somebody. And so having a talk track that's a lot more centric to the mindset of causing curiosity and stirring things up for people. And the third tip would be 100% to start being more intentional with your dials. So if you're looking at a list and you have 100 people and you have a metric even that you need to call them, my recommendation is to cut 10 people out of that list, 15 people out of that list, do your dials on the other 75, 80, 5 people that are on that list, and then take that 10, 15, or 20 people and take an extra 5 minutes on each one, or even 2 minutes, and learn a little something about them and try to craft an email that's centric toward them and their personality, their needs, their desires, curiosity that can drive familiarity in those moments, and to just change the game inside of your walk in little increments based on choice and intentionality, and not having to sit back and just be chained and shackled to what it is that your job is telling you that you have to do, because that's an excuse.
So if anyone listens to this now and they wanted to find out more about what you guys are doing there, or they want to see more of your content, where can we find you? So
thesalesrebellion.com is the best place to go for, just resources in general on the organization, but linkedin.com/in/copy warrior to see daily content from me. All the social sites from TikTok to Twitter to YouTube, either /salesrebellion or @salesrebellion to find us. You can come and hang. We got a whole community of rebels. It's much bigger than just Dale Dupree. We've got tons of coaches. We've got tons of very active members and successful BDRs, SDRs, AEs that are inside of our organization that are also helping and teaching other people through their experiences and telling their stories.
Thanks to Dale for sharing with us his top 3 tips for outbound calls. If you like what he had to say, don't forget to check out his content and find him on social media.